the Tumaini Peace Initiative has not yet resumed. We received a formal invitation from the chief mediator to the stakeholders, informing us that the talks would resume on Monday. And we presented ourselves at the venue for the commencement or resumption of the talks. But until now, as we speak, the government delegation from Juba has not arrived Nairobi for the talks. And so the negotiations have not formally commenced.
When President William Ruto visited Juba last week and had a meeting with President Kiir, both of them agreed that you are supposed to finalize the Tumaini Peace Initiative within 2 weeks. Now you're telling me the government delegation is not on the location. What are you hearing? What are the reasons why the government delegation is not in Nairobi for the talks? What are you hearing? I mean, you have sources in Juba.
Well, there is no formal communication on the status of the government delegation. 1 week has already been lost out of the 2 weeks that was directed from the communique that came out of the meeting of President Kiir and President Ruto. However, the information we receive from informal sources tend to indicate that the government delegation, the head of government delegation, was relieved of his duty. The president was supposed to nominate or appoint a new head of government delegation before the delegation would travel to Nairobi. And so, as it stands now, the delegation has not reached Nairobi, and until they come, the negotiations may not commence.
And given the 7 days you're left with now, because President Kiir and President William Ruto were, straightforward saying that these negotiations should end within 2 weeks. Given the 7 days you have at hand right now, is it enough for you to iron out the sticky points, the Tumaini Initiative?
Well, if no issues are raised, the 7 days would be enough to finalize the remaining issues. Majorly, it is the issue of governance and responsibility sharing, which has remained. But most of the protocols were finalized in the negotiations that took place for over 3 months when the process started.
Talk to me about the issues of governance, and we'll later go to responsibility sharing, because our listeners would want to know, what is it about governance that you are talking about it again? There is a government on the ground.
Well, yes, there is a government on the ground. However, the Tumaini Initiative brings in a number of definitely new arrangements in terms of institutions that have been put in place, and also new actors, the parties that are negotiating from the side of the opposition. And so this is part of what they would want to negotiate about and finalize agreement on this in terms of how these structures would be operationalized. And the negotiation would also then focus on the issue of responsibility sharing. And this means the roles that these actors who are from the opposition side would play once the final agreement is signed.
Rajab, you have been involved in the search for peace in South Sudan for quite a long time. I mean, I remember meeting you in Addis several times. Could you tell our listeners, why is it that every time a conflict is resolved, people want to negotiate for their personal interests? You were telling me the governance is to see how the other stakeholders who have been left out can be incorporated. Why should people negotiate about their personal interests as opposed to the interests of the people of South Sudan who have not seen peace for a long time?
Well, in my view, the agreements that have been negotiated are actually adequate enough to deliver peace in South Sudan if there is commitment and interest to implement them as agreed. Now, what is happening with regard to the negotiation, in all of these aspects, my view is that it is not solely about the issue of personal interests, because for this particular process, when it commenced, there was a proposal that the whole thing should start immediately with the subject of governance and specifically responsibility sharing. However, this was pushed aside that, the issue of responsibility sharing does not constitute the core issues of the crisis in the country. And so the negotiations should focus on substantial issues of the crisis in the country. So until the protocols were finalized, most of the negotiations were actually on the issues that affect the country and also a focus on why agreements are not being implemented. And that explains why the element of responsibility sharing is the very last one that may be negotiated. And it's also understandable that this is a political settlement or political negotiation for a political agreement, and therefore the political actors may need to agree on how they locate themselves in this political process in order to ensure that they have a role to play in effecting the implementation. So that's how I would understand it.
And politics and peace are not brothers and sisters. Let's imagine the Tumaini initiative ends up with a political settlement where the actors on the table, those who have been sitting on the fence, going back to Juba and offered ministerial positions. Would Rajab accept a ministerial position?
Well, at the moment, I would not accept a ministerial position.
Why? Why would you not accept? Why would you not accept a ministerial position that comes with the V8, air-conditioned office, bodyguards, and money? Why would you not accept?
I have seen how people are frustrated in those positions. They are given those positions and they are paralyzed in those positions. They are unable to deliver in those positions. And so there is really no value in chasing a V8 and a ministerial position. What I would think that would be important is to ensure that we demand of these parties who are the political actors to deliver on the commitments of the peace agreement. And I find it reasonable to be a voice for the population in demanding that agreements are implemented to deliver peace in the country, and I am comfortable doing that because I have engaged so much with the citizens throughout the country as a civil society when I was in the country. And I have seen the need. I have seen how citizens yearn for peace. I have seen the difficulties they have gone through. And if there is anything I can do to help, it is not going to hold a ministerial position where you deliver nothing. I would rather hold a position of an activist to demand of those in power to make sure that these commitments are delivered on.
But Rajab, you were a state minister in the country. I mean, saying that you will continue to be the voice of the people, you left your activism job and became a minister. Well,
I was pushed to that duty without without chasing for it. The people in my constituency, in my county, were asked to nominate someone that would be appointed a state minister in Yambio, and they sent my name and told me that this was their choice and I should go and represent the county in the state government. And I went. Of course, I was convinced to go by the population, by the people in my county. I went and spent 3 months, and when the states were increased to 28, I went back to my work as an activist.